Okay, hey everybody, this is Else. I'm back again today to discuss the new patch note changes of Morrowind. Now, as most of you know, they come out with the original patch notes, and then they have the PTS, and they go through and they let people play it. And sometimes the changes they make aren't they're not good, and they end up showing up on paper that they're not good. So they make tweaks over time up until the actual release of Morrowind. So if this is going to work the same way the last PTS worked, they came out with a bunch of changes for balance on the first week. And then the second week they tweaked a bunch of things. The third week they tweaked even fewer things. And then the fourth week they basically changed almost nothing because, they had what they thought they wanted. So, anyway, if this works the same way as that, these changes are going to be the most changes that they make. These are going to be the biggest changes that they make. I'm not saying that that's what this is going to happen. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but if this is like last time, that's probably the route they're going to go. So, after these patch notes, I feel like we have a pretty good grasp of where to go with our builds next patch. So this is going to discuss the small new changes that they made, and then it's going to discuss, if I'm a Magicka class, where do I go from here? If I'm a Stamina class, where do I go from here? In my opinion, of course. So let's jump into it. These are the combat and gameplay for the Warden. I haven't touched the Warden yet, so there's some stuff here that I don't really know, but they changed this Animal Companions passive to where now, instead of your Animal Companion doing damage, it generates ultimate. It's just when you cast it. So they wanted to make it more reliable for Wardens. Templars have a way of generating ultimate through their passives. Nightblades have ultimate regeneration through drinking a potion, and Stam DKs have a way of generating ultimate through their Earth and Heart passive. So hitting Igneous Shield while in combat, and Sorks have reduced ultimate cost. So everybody kind of has their own ultimate passive, so I guess this puts it more in line with the other ones. Yeah. Green Balance, Accelerated Growth. This passive ability now grants you major mending when you heal an ally who is below 40% health, reduced from 50%, and the duration of major mending has been reduced to 1.5–3 seconds, down from 3 to 6 seconds. This is a pretty big change. This is a pretty big nerf to major mending for Wardens. If you watched one of my last videos, one of my biggest complaints about the changes that they made in the first PTS was, in my opinion, if any class is going to have major mending, the quote-unquote healer class should have it. It just doesn't make any sense otherwise. And they took major mending completely from the Templar. So it just seemed really weird that you're going to give it to another class like the Warden, you're going to give it to another class like the DK, but you're going to take it away from the actual healer. Just, I don't know. Anyway, this just reduces the ability for even the Wardens to get it. So now, as you know, like DKs, they can only get major mending while the shield is up. So if they're getting focused, they're basically not getting major mending. This only happens if you heal a target below 40% health, and it only happens for 3 seconds. So they're really trying to eliminate the amount of major mending that you get. Now, you can get major mending through one of the new gear sets. You can get major mending through having a Resto staff. I think a full heavy attack gives you major mending on your next heal or whatever. There's a few other ways to get it, but they're just making it much harder. I think these are really good changes. Like if you're going to nerf it for the Templar, if you're going to nerf it for the DK, I think this is a great change so that all the classes are kind of in line for their healing. Plus, if you're a healer, you already have so many great heals. They didn't touch healing springs, they didn't touch mutagen, they didn't touch the overall effect of Breath of Life. Wardens here, they have a ton of heal over times. Like, if you're a healer, even without major mending, you're still going to be able to heal. Like, they're just so cheap. You can spam healing springs. You can, if you run across these groups now, and they have these healers, they don't need major mending to keep their group up with the amount of heal over times. It's just going to be harder. You can't just go in there and spam Breath of Life and keep everybody stacked to full in a PvP situation. You're going to have to actually, you know, be a healer, and you're going to have to play. You're going to have to play your class more than just, you know, holding block and spamming Breath of Life. So I think these are great changes. Minor toughness. I don't know what this is. I'm not playing the Warden, so I'm not going to pretend to comment on that. Then they got some housing issues, which is great. My house actually has an issue. Hopefully they adjusted that. I'll go back and read that later. They did a couple more class changes, and a couple of them I thought were actually pretty big. So wanted to comment on those really quick, and then we'll bounce out of here. All right, so general added a new visual effect to roll dodge to communicate the immunity window for immobilizations. So when they did the cost increase for dodge roll for all classes a year ago, they put this animation, this little green thing at your feet, so you knew your next dodge roll costed more the next time you did it until those go away. This is really good for people that, you know, it's good for everybody to have a cue to know like when somebody's immobilization immunity is up. So when you dodge roll, you now have immobilization immunity for 2 seconds. So people using NKs, people using talents aren't going to spam those abilities on you because they're going to be able to see that you have immunity up. They can now wait. I think that's a good change. Fixed an issue where ranking up a summon ability, Unstable Familiar, Winged Twilight, Feral Guardian would unsummon your pet. I didn't know that was an issue. So we'll just leave it at that. Nightblade, Shadow Barrier. This is a pretty big change for Nightblades. Increase this passive ability's base duration of Major Ward and Major Resolve to 3 seconds from 2 to 4 seconds. Now, Nightblades, they get Major Ward and Major Resolve passively by using a Shadow ability, which means that if they're using, like on my Nightblade, I have 3 Shadow abilities on my bar. I have Cloak, I have Fear, and I have Surprise Attack. So every time I use those abilities, if I'm in medium armor, I get Major Ward and Major Resolve for 4 seconds. It's a very short duration, but it increases that duration by 1 second for every piece of heavy armor equipped. So, since I'm wearing 5 heavy, I have Major Ward and Major Resolve for 9 seconds. And as you know, if you play Nightblade and you're interested in this, you know that, if you're in a fight, every 9 seconds you're either cloaking, fearing, or using surprise attack. So on my Nightblade, not only am I wearing heavy, but I have Major Ward and Major Resolve up all the time, which helps buff me and helps keep me tanky throughout the entire duration of the fight, which is very useful in a Nightblade, which lacks healing right now. This change is a big buff to medium armor stamina Nightblades. They can now get Major Ward more reliably for a longer period of time while they're fighting. If you go with a 5-1-1, 5 medium, 1 heavy, 1 light setup to get your full Undaunted Metal, you can now have Major Resolve and Major Ward for 7 seconds, which is almost as much as I currently have. So you're going to be a little bit squishier, but now you get to have that buff almost all, it'll basically be up almost all the time, except for, if you're trying to kite, if you're trying to get away a little bit, and you're out of magic. Well, even then, you're cloaking, so you still have it. This is a very big change, and this change might be what makes me go back to medium armor on my Nightblade in general, because of this buff. Currently, the way it is, you already lose armor from being in medium, and then you don't have Major Ward and Major Resolve up all the time, so it's like it's a double-edged sword where you just get hurt both ways, and you end up being really squishy sometimes, and I just don't like it in the current state of the game, so I go heavy. Increasing the duration of this passive bonus will improve the overall survivability of Nightblades. Yes, definitely. Heavy armor tank focused Nightblades in particular should have a much smoother time maintaining nearly consistent uptime on these buffs with a combination of abilities such as Refreshing Path or Summon Shades. Okay. Siphoning Strikes fixed an issue where the heal from this ability and its morphs could not critically strike. Okay, so apparently now they can critically strike. Cool. Templar, Adric's Spear. I thought this change was good. The synergy from this ability and its morphs now restores magic or stamina based on whichever has the highest maximum, instead of whichever has the largest missing percentage. Now, this is more of a PvE change in general. Like, let's say you go into a trial and you are a Magicka Templar DPS. Well, when you pick up shards, you want Magicka. More often than not. When you're a stamina DPS, you want stamina. And this allows that to happen. Now, there are some classes in the game, like Stamina DK, for instance, Stamina Templar right now in PvP, hell, even Stam Sork. If you're picking up a shard, you never really want to see Magicka. Like, you're not going to see Magicka and go, oh yes, now I get to spam Igneous more, or now I get to, it's kind of helpful, but more often than not, if you're playing those classes, you want this. You want stamina as a Stamplar or a Stam DK, whatever. And if you're a Magicka Sork or whatever, like, you'd rather see this buff. Like, if you're picking up a shard, you'd rather probably see this buff. So I think this is nice. It caters to the build that you have, and it's more reliable. You're not going to... If you want stamina, you're not going to get Magicka. It's what you're going to get with shards. You can kind of plan for it. I think this is a very good change. This is a known issue. Luminous Shard resource return for the casting Templar is still restoring resources based on the largest missing percent. Okay, this will be fixed in future PTS patch. Okay, so apparently this is a known issue that they're working on. Based on initial PTS feedback, we've changed the magic or stamina this synergy gives you, as well as the necrotic orb synergy. So universal shards, basically, to always restore the resource you have the highest maximum of, so that it's more consistent and reliable for your build type. I think that's a great change. A couple weapon changes. Critical Rush fixed an issue where this morph was not increasing in damage based on distance traveled. Okay, good change. Fixed an issue where this morph was not increasing its stun length based on distance traveled. Another good fix. Werewolf fixed an issue where this ability and its morphs were not applying the charge snare to the target enemy. I mean, I guess it's fine that it's supposed to do that and you fixed it, but nobody wants the charge snare. Like, nobody wants to be slightly snared every time their gap closes. It's really annoying when you're playing in a small scale situation and you're trying to get away from a group and you have people gap close spamming you and you're snared because they're gap closing to you. You can't... It gets to a point to where it's really hard to get away, and it's just a frustrating way to go down. You can't line of sight as well. It doesn't feel as smooth. You just feel bogged down, even though you're not really getting, you're not really getting hit by stuff that's supposed to snare you all the time. But it does, because they have a snare on the charge. Champion system. All right, they fixed a few CP stuff, a few CP things. Yeah, there was one more thing that they changed, and I'm just going to scroll through it, and then I'm going to... Alright, item sets. Soulshine fixed an issue where this item set was not granting its spell damage bonus to Drain Essence and its morphs. Drain Essence is the vampire stun, and it is a casted ability, so that's good. It actually hits kind of hard. Soulshine, it's now even going to hit harder, so that's a good change. It should be doing that. And then Tremor Scale. Reduce the duration of the snare applied by this item set to 4 seconds from 8 seconds. Now, if you're playing in PvP, you know that this set's pretty brutal for snares. Like, some people run Tremor Scale not for the damage, they run it because they really want to screw... I mean, it's an AoE snare. So it's like I think it's 75% currently for 8 seconds. So unless you have Purify and unless you're really spamming Shuffle, it's really hard to get away from this. And then it's a 4-second cooldown on this ability as well. So you could almost have, like it says here, you can have almost 100% uptime on a 75% snare for your group. So if you're XV1ing a group, this monster set makes it really easy to XV1 and like really zerg people over. This just, makes the game a little bit more free-flowing. You still get the snare. I don't like how much it snares, but I like the reduced duration. I think this is a good change. So that's kind of it for the PvP section of the patch notes. I kind of wanted to dive into what I'm going to be doing before Morrowind drops. So as we know, they're getting rid of reduced cost. They're increasing the cost of stamina abilities universally for all stamina skills for classes. They are reducing the amount of reduced costs you get in light and medium armor. And now in the CP tree, they have a skill line where with your light and heavy attacks, you can reduce the amount of magicka, stamina, and health recovery a build has for like 3 seconds. So if you're a staff build, you can basically reduce their magicka, stamina, and health recovery by like 10% for 3 seconds all the time. So they're just automatically going to have reduced 10% recovery. If you're a melee class, you could do the same thing with sword and shield. You could do it with a 2H. There are a lot of classes that can do this. If you're a Templar and you're proccing your enchants, dual wield Templar, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to debuff the person in front of you, doing the exact same thing with your attacks. So they attacked recovery from a bunch of different ways in a PvP and PvE perspective. So what that means for you is farming for certain sets and farming for certain gear is going to be harder once Morrowind drops. And let's be honest, you're not going to want to farm for some of these sets that you need when Morrowind happens. You're going to want to go to Morrowind. You're going to want to experience the new trial. You're going to go. If you're a quester, you're going to go quest. If you're going to PvP like I do, you're going to go to the new battlegrounds, and you're probably going to spend the first couple of weeks just hanging out in battlegrounds, killing people in 4v4v4s. You're not going to want to farm. So it looks like those changes are going to be universal. It's no CP in battlegrounds. We know we're going to need more recovery. So if you're running a current CP build, like if you're running Hunding's Rage with Black Rose, or not Hunding's Rage, if you're running Hunding's Rage with another 5-piece damage set, and you don't really have a ton of recovery, and you're a DK that's a red guard, and they're affecting the adrenaline rush, and they're affecting how much stamina you restore, you're going to have recovery issues. So I want to go through a few recovery sets that each class can kind of use, give you some ideas for what you might want to farm for if you don't have these already. So first we're going to start off with Marksman's Crest. This is a really easy to get set. You don't have to farm this at all. If you PvP, literally all you have to do is save your AP rewards. When you get an impen piece, just throw it to the side. It's 2-piece stamina recovery, 1 weapon damage, and then reduce the stamina cost of abilities by 5%. This is a very strong, sustain 5-piece set. It's in medium armor. You get it in PvP through the AP reward section. Very, very strong set for sustain. I'm not saying run this, but there will be setups that will really be able to utilize this 5-piece for what it's giving you. If this is something that interests you, definitely PvP a little bit. They're in the vendors right now for dirt cheap too. You might have to go shopping around a little bit, or just ask around to your guildies and say, hey, hold on to a couple of these pieces. But this will be a set that'll be worth having for a stamina class, especially with the 30% increased vigor cost. Like I said, universally increased stamina cost of abilities. This type of set's going to be very useful. This is the favorite right now, Bone Pirate's Tatters. It is getting a nerf next patch. Stamina recovery for the 5-piece is going to drop to 150 from 300. It's still a good set. You're going to get 2 pieces of recovery on it. You're going to get 3 buffs to maximum stamina, which affects your damage. This is a very powerful set. Even with the nerf to recovery, still a very powerful set. You can combine this with Dubious Cameron Throne, the new drink, to get a ton of recovery for your builds. You can get this in Blackheart Haven. It's kind of harder to farm since the last boss. You can't solo this whole thing. The last boss turns you into a skeleton, and then he kills you slowly, and you can't fight back, you can't heal, you can't do anything. So get a buddy, get a group of 4, go in there and farm your Bone Pirates. I think this is going to be the set that everybody's going to use, for good reason. It just makes a lot of sense. Get in there and get farming now while people are still picking it up. Shadow Walker. This is an older set that isn't as prominent as it used to be, but it still is going to have its uses for Battlegrounds, for open world PvP, for Nightblades. This is more of a Nightblade set. The 4 pieces universal, max stam, weapon damage, and recovery. While you are sneaking or invisible and are not moving, you heal for 2150 health and restore 2150 stamina every second. So this turns out to 4300 stamina recovery while you are stealth and not moving. Now there's a bunch of different ways you can go about getting into stealth and not moving with Shadow Walker. Basically, you use Shadow Image. You jump into your fight, you're a high damage build, no recovery. You go in there, you try and nuke people, you're out of stamina, you go back to your Shadow Image, you cloak, and then you just stay still and you cloak. And then your health and your stamina will burst back to full. Now, the cool part about this is Vigor now pulls you out of stealth, as it should, but this heal will not pull you out of stealth. So this is a reliable way for Nightblades just to reset the fight for themselves, to get stealth, to get healed up, to get their stamina back. You can still be a pretty big glass cannon with this set. You jump in, you do a ton of damage. This doesn't have to be on both bars. This 5-piece doesn't have to be on both bars. You can see you can get it in all the weapons, you can get it in all the body pieces. You run a 4-piece on the body, and then you run it out like 1 piece on your back bar, wherever your cloak is, like 1 piece on that bar. And then you cloak, and then that's where your 5-piece is. And so you can really fit this around a bunch of things as a Nightblade. And it's medium, and it comes in jewelry. Like, you can still run heavy with this if you want to. Very strong set still for Nightblades. Amber Plasm. I have a Magic and Nightblade build with this on my channel. This setup is really strong, but there are some classes I just haven't been able to use it on because, if I'm block casting on a Magicka DK, well, when you're blocking, you don't get the stamina recovery. If I'm block casting on my Magicka Templar, I don't get Magicka recovery. My Sork, currently, they have a bonus to recoveries as a passive for Sorks, so I don't really need the recovery on that class too because just with tripods, I have unlimited stam sustain as long as I don't really dodge roll. Now, some Sorks are using this set for like the dark conversion to get Magicka back because they get so much stamina recovery. But this set is going to be more universally used by Magicka classes because the 4-piece is so strong. You get max Magicka, crit, and spell damage, but the 5-piece is so strong. And as I said, like the CP changes, light and heavy attacks are going to go after your stamina and your Magicka. So if you're a Magicka class, probably a lot of you, when I said that, you're looking at it and you're like, oh crap, they're going to hurt my Magicka sustain. Well, they're also hurting your stam sustain. So when you get CC'd, you're not going to get your stamina back as easily. It's going to be harder to maintain. It's going to be harder to maintain your stamina, so you stay alive, which is a good thing. Like, there's some classes with heavy armor that they just kind of stay alive forever right now. Amber Plasm is a set that you get in Ruins of Mazatoon. It's a little bit harder to get. It's a little bit harder to farm because the dungeon is harder than most. So I would get started on it soon, especially with the new changes coming out. This is going to be a very, very strong set. I'm probably going to use it on quite a few builds in PvP in general because of how strong this 5-piece is. Everybody's Magicka favorite, Shroud of the Lich. I think just about every Sork in the game is running this. Just about every. I think there's a lot of Magicka Nightblades running this. If you don't know about the set, it gives you 2 pieces of recovery on the 4-piece. And then the 5-piece is, when you fall below 33% Magicka, increase your Magicka recovery by 1,032 for 20 seconds. This effect can occur once every 1 minute. Now, roughly speaking, this turns out to almost 700 Magicka recovery for the 5-piece. And I understand the need to nerf Bone Pirates, but if you're going to go after recovery for Bone Pirates, and you're going to nerf that, I don't see how you don't address this a little bit. Like, this buff is really, really strong. It's really powerful. It allows Sorks to stack into all damage while only having like 4 pieces on the body, 2 recovery pieces, 1 max magic, and then all they have to do is go to their back bar to put a ward on, and then they get this proc. It just, I don't know. I think it's too strong. if they're going to nerf everything else, that I felt like they needed to address this. But that's not your guys' problem. If you're a Magicka class, Shroud of the Lich is going to be a really good recovery set. You get it in Crypta Hearts. It comes in everything. If you want to run it on a Templar, you can run it on Jewelry and Sword and Board. If you want to run it on a Sorc, you run it on either 4 body pieces or 3 Jewelry and 1 body piece and the resto. Very, very powerful set for recovery. So yeah. And then finally, for a few classes, Warlock doesn't give as much recovery as Lich. It's about half. It turns out to about 300 for the 5-piece. But where this works out really well is if you're a vampire with Mistform. Now, let's say you're getting really focused in PvP and you're Mistforming around a lot. Like, let's say you're Mistforming around a lot and you're just trying to avoid damage. You know, people are beating on you and you're trying to stay alive, and now you're running out of magic because your magic recovery is not up because, you know, you're in Mistform. You don't get magic recovery in Mistform. Well, if you're wearing Lich and Lich procs and you have to go into Mistform, well, that's 5 seconds of no magic recovery with Lich, because you don't get magic recovery while it's up. So in Mistform, you're not always getting the full bonus of the Lich set. With this set, if you drop below 33% and you come out of Mist, you get the burst 9,000 Magicka. You're guaranteed this burst of Magicka. Now, I'm not saying it's better. All I'm saying is, for a certain few specific builds, it's nice to get the guaranteed Magicka over the Magicka recovery. So you can get this in Selene's Web. This is pretty easy to get. I would definitely look into this for a few certain builds for recovery. Very nice set. Now, outside of this, Magicka classes also have access to Seducer. Seducer is a crafted set, two trait crafted set, really easy to get. Most people have 2 traits on other classes or on their crafters, so really easy to get. The 8% reduced cost of stamina abilities is really, really strong. There's another set in PvP, I can't remember the name of it, but it gives 5% reduced cost to all of your abilities. That's going to also be another very strong set in this game, in this next patch. So with all that being said, I'm going to try and cut it off here and basically say, like, you know, if I'm going to be doing this, but if, you know, I'd start farming now. You know, that way when Morrowind drops, you can level up your wardens, you can work on your wardens, you can theory craft your new builds. Like, you don't have to worry about which set you're going to run. You kind of have access to, you know, a little bit of everything. You know, and you can figure out what you want and what you think is going to work best. Maybe you need a little bit more recovery, maybe you need a lot more recovery, and you're going to have to completely overhaul your build, your current build. So yeah, hopefully this helped. Hopefully you're a little bit more excited for Morrowind. As information comes out, you know, they're going to ease people's concerns about, you know, the sustain and stuff, and, you know, allow people to talk more about the PTS, which will be a good thing. So with that being said, have a nice day and take it easy.